beautiful East Tennessee in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. You are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show, and I do appreciate you spending your time with me. Today, I have a very special guest, and that is the Minister of Foreign Relations of the Republic of Liberland, Mr. Thomas Walls. So, welcome to the show, Tom. I appreciate you coming on.
Well, hi, Sherry. It's a pleasure to be here. I didn't know I was going to be on video. You know, I love podcasts and shows like this and radio shows. They said I had a face for radio, so I thought it was just going to be audio only. So I wasn't really prepared, and I didn't really dress up. So here I am.
I'm sure my audience won't mind at all. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Thank you again for coming on. So, can you give us a little bit of the history of Liberland and when it came into existence?
Sure. Back in 2015, Vit Jedlička and a few other folks from the Czech Republic went down to this small patch of land between Serbia and Croatia. They had done some research beforehand and found out it was basically no man's land. No other country currently claimed it. So they thought under international law, you can claim land that is unclaimed. Or it's land that is known as terra nullius, which is an age-old concept that goes way far back into international law theory. If it's unclaimed, someone can come along and claim it. And in our case, no one claimed Liberland. It used to be called Siga or Gornja Siga, and neither Croatia nor Serbia wanted it. Of course, you know, they went to war with one another, unfortunately, after the breakup of Yugoslavia. And they've had a border dispute ever since. And it just so happened that neither one of them wanted this patch of land. Croatia's claim was about 10 times the amount of Liberland on the other side of the river, which is now pretty much Serbia. And Serbia said, well, let's just let the river be the border. And in either side's version of the dispute, neither one of them wanted this pocket of land. So,
unusual for a state not to want land.
Yeah. That's right. I know. Usually they're. Well, the thing is, if Croatia claimed the land, then they would forfeit all their land on the other side of the river. And if Serbia claimed it, then they would kind of be admitting that Croatia's version of the dispute is correct. Mm-hmm. So in this case, we that worked to our advantage, and we planted a flag and sent the news out and notified embassies around the world, and it caused a pretty big splash in the media.
Yeah.
And we got over. To date, we have over 500,000 applications for citizenship. Wow. In the first week alone, there were tens of thousands of applications. So I got on board just a few days after that. Vit and I had some friends in common in the Liberty movement, so it was a natural fit for me. And oh, hi, Kitty.
I love cats.
She's not a Liberland citizen yet, but she's she's in the process.
Beautiful. Great. So, how many people are involved in the actual governance of Liberland at this point?
Well, that's a good question. We have over 100 representatives globally who are Liberland representatives in many, many different countries, including a couple dozen in the United States who are working hard for Liberland. Dave Molyneux is our U.S. representative. He's based in Virginia, and he goes to D.C. every now and then. He goes to some of our other events representing us. And, I attend them too, and I also attend some of our events in Europe and other countries. I just got back from Rome, where we had a meeting with our Italian supporters. I was in Barcelona, where we met with our supporters in Catalonia and Spain. And I was also in Paris, where we had a meeting for our French supporters, as well as Brussels, where we were speaking to the European Parliament, which was quite exciting.
So how do you feel that the idea of Liberland has progressed since 2015? Because I remember when I first heard about it, I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I've sort of, the buzz kind of dies down after a while, but you guys on the ground are still doing the work. So what's been are more people accepting of it now, or is it still?
Yeah, a great thing that is about us is our staying power. We're very serious about what we're doing. And we do have a formal organization. We are capable of entering relations with other states, which is one of the Montevideo criteria for statehood, which is recognized international practice. We've actually spoken to many, many diplomats from other recognized countries talking about, what would be the process for officially recognizing us. And we went on several trips to countries in Latin America and Caribbean, as well as Europe, actually going in some cases to the foreign ministries of these countries and sitting down with their diplomats and talking to them. We've met with foreign ministers and representatives of other states talking about Liberland quite a bit. And the reception's been great. Of course, formal diplomatic recognition with any one country is a process that probably would take 2 to 3 years of sitting down and doing a lot of paperwork and having diplomats going back and forth and signing treaties and stuff. We've done some already. We signed a memorandum of understanding with one country, which is one of the first steps towards recognition. About 10 different countries allow travel into their country with a Liberland passport. Not many people have Liberland passports, but the few diplomats on our team who do have used that. I've used mine a couple times to go to a few places. Vid, our president, has used his probably about 11 times to enter different places. Now, one person just last month entered Canada and did not even show it, but they searched him and found the Liberland passport and took it away from him. So we're actually filing a request for them to return our passport that was taken from our a Liberland citizen. He actually used his Canadian passport to get in, but they searched him as they pick people out at random and search them, and they took his Liberland passport from him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
With that, Liberland has been sort of this idea of based on libertarianism. What do you see that has been the effect of that on libertarianism around the world? Have you been able to kind of put the message out in places that it may not have been before, just for the fact that you've been trying to do this?
That was one of the objectives, to get the liberty message across, and it has a lot of appeal to people who both follow the liberty philosophy and who are sort of new to it. In the European Union, of course, as you can see, they're having several issues, with Brexit. The UK wanted to leave because of the EU's stifling regulations and taxes, and it's they want to command everything basically from Brussels, and the UK had had enough of it, and they voted to leave. So everyone in Europe who recognizes that freedom is the key to prosperity, finds us interesting and finds us a worthy endeavor. We've also had a great reception in the United States. Vit has been to the Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, which is a big libertarian convention every summer. He's spoken to ALEC, which he got a tremendous reception at the leadership dinner last year. And he also went to their gala dinner this year, which actually there were quite a few interesting people there, including the vice president. That doesn't mean, we support anything somebody in government does, but it was kind of cool that we were addressed from the podium in the same room that the vice president was in, so including many other notable people. So we've been making some waves there. We've met with a number of senators and representatives in the U.S. We met with Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ben Sass, a few other senators. We met with a number of representatives who, some of whom were very supportive of us. Tom Garrett from Virginia, who just retired, was very supportive of Liberland, but he's out of Congress now. His successor, Denver Riggleman, is actually also very supportive of Liberland, as well as a few other congressmen who we've been talking to. And actually, we've been getting state legislatures to introduce bills expressing the sense of the legislature that Liberland should be recognized. So we've had some success so far in that already. We've got a bill in one Midwestern state. We've got a bill in another Western state, and a few others that we're working on. So we're very pleased at that progress. That's how, when the Baltics left the former Soviet Union, they lobbied, people of Lithuanian or Estonian descent lobbied their legislators here in America to say, okay, why doesn't the Michigan legislature issue a statement calling for the recognition of Lithuania, for example? And that happened. It happened, and that's how they got the ball rolling with their recognition, and we would like to do a similar thing in the United States.
I guess that gives the the reason that you would need something like that is that it gives the opportunity for other people to step up and say, no, that's not true. And if they don't, then you get more and more evidence that this is a recognized area to this
Sure.
particular
Sure,
place.
and we're prepared to make that case. That's what we did in the European Parliament last month in December. We had a presentation which was attended by several members of the European Parliament. Now, we do have an issue with our neighbor, Croatia. We do not have any issues with our neighbor, Serbia, who are actually very accommodating, and they're very welcoming of the investment and the tourism that we bring there. And we've brought quite a bit of tourism and maritime industry. We have 2 ships that are based in Apatin, Serbia, and the mayor is very supportive of us. Even the police have given us escorts at various times. And we have an office in Belgrade where we've brought tech investment to that country. Of course, we're very big in the cryptocurrency community. So a lot of people who have made their living in, with Bitcoin, Ethereum, SafeX, other cryptocurrencies, Monero, have been very supportive of Liberland. So that's been very, very, a big wind in our sails, so to speak.
Sure. I guess it's good to have that kind of investment too, and when you're trying to get everything started up, because as we know, nothing is free. So got to pay
Right.
those bills somewhere.
Yeah. I and the rest of us, we're volunteers. We don't get paid for our work. I mean, sometimes I've been compensated for my travel, but I don't get paid per se. It's a labor of love, and I do things like go on shows and appear at events and things like that, and it's great. I get to meet so many interesting people, and from all walks of life and from all over the world. And that's a real fulfilling part of being part of Liberland. I get to talk about the ideas. I get to talk about our project. I get to meet so many interesting and different people all over the world. I'm a history and language buff, so going over to Europe and traveling in Latin America, that's a great opportunity for me for personal enrichment, in addition to furthering and promoting Liberland. So it's a win-win, and you do something because you love it, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
So
I definitely understand that.
And I go back in the Liberty Movement. I used to work for the LP in Washington, D.C. I worked with the RLC. We helped get liberty-oriented GOP candidates elected. And Justin Amash is one of the people we've supported. So I think, you're probably in good company when it comes to us and our dedication and the ideas that motivate us. Now, we also want to blend these great ideas of liberty that have a long tradition of hundreds of years that goes back to, the Spanish scholastics in medieval times, who came up with subjective theory of value, all the way through Adam Smith and John Stuart Mill and Frederick Bastiat. We draw upon these traditions, and we take the technology that we've see so much potential in, like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and smart contracts and things like that. And we want to merge these 2 ideas together. And with that, we want to have a new future of governance idea. We're done with the state telling you, how to run every aspect of your life. We want individuals to be free to make their own choices. So that's part of Liberland's philosophy. And that's something, sometimes it's tough to get that across to people. They just want a passport to a new country so they can get into Europe. So it's challenging to explain those concepts to them sometimes, because they just have their mind on one thing. I want to get into Europe. Mm-hmm. Now, we do have a lot of applications for citizenship from all over the world. And, we can't give citizenship out to everybody. It wouldn't mean anything. Sure. And it doesn't give them permission to come into Europe. They think it does sometimes, which is unfortunate. No matter how hard no matter how clearly you explain it to them, they still think, well, why can't you send me a passport? You started a new country.
Right.
So that is one challenge, and we kind of have to manage people's expectations in one sense. But a lot of people do understand us. They live in oppressive countries, and they want to get out, and they want to live in freedom. So there is that aspect of it too, which we're glad to be a part of.
Speaking of that, do you think that Liberland is maybe a template for some of the secession movements around the world right now? Say Catalonia, that they could take a page from your book and start
Yeah,
their
we
own
actually spoke
world?
with those guys, and I was just in Barcelona myself, and the independence movement is very strong. We ourselves, we're not a secessionist movement.
Sure.
We don't claim anything that's part of an existing territory. We're not a coup or a
Right.
takeover, and we're not saying we're going to, you know, uh, just secede. We're not doing that.
Right.
It's a piece of land that nobody wants. So, but we have been to Catalonia, for example. There's been some internal disagreement on Catalonia. Some people say, well, they're a bunch of socialists. They want to even raise taxes even more once they secede. So that's not the point. The point
Right.
is we support self-determination of people wherever they are. Actually, Catalonia is a net taxpayer into the greater country of Spain, so they're actually losing more than they get. So
Yeah.
there,
Anytime you
there's
have, you know, smaller government is a better thing for most people in their
yeah,
lives, regardless.
or decentralized. That's the kind of thing we support. Another thing I wanted to talk about, we've motivated a lot of people to come forward to offer their services to Liberland, and we want to start a Liberland Lawyers Association, the Association of Liberland Lawyers. We've got a bunch of architects who are very supportive of Liberland and who have submitted their designs for what Liberland could look like. Sergio Bianchi in Italy of Studio Bianchi in Rome has submitted a great design that is very futuristic, very high tech, yet can hold a good amount of people, and preserves like the beautiful green space in the area on the river Danube, which is a really nice region. I've of course been there many times, and his design, which we've shared a little bit on our Facebook page and on our Twitter, shows that his design is totally privately organized. This is no government involvement or funding
Imagine that.
whatsoever. Yeah, exactly. So, but his idea is so great. We do a lot of cities nowadays are so dense and compact, and they don't allow for designs that are more harmonious with their surroundings. So this design that our friend Sergio has come up with is just really far has a really great vision for the future and creating a livable space. That's just one of the designs that have been fielded, but that's the latest one that we've have shared and taken a closer look at. He hosted us at his studio in Rome when we were over there last month, and it was just very, very nice to see an actual design of what Liberland could look like. He had like a diorama built, and a map, and here's the structure, and here's where the people can live, and here's where the ships can dock. It was amazing. So very inspired by very inspired by that kind of thing, and people are actually coming forward and using their talents to help create what Liberland can look like.
Is there any infrastructure there right now at all? And if so, does anyone live there even part-time?
There was a guy who lived in the shack, or the hunting lodge, which was torn down. We can't get in at any time we want. There's a blockade around Liberland. The Croatians blockaded anybody, including Croatians, from going to the land. A couple weeks after we declared Liberland, they set up a perimeter around it, arresting anyone who got near it. So there's no infrastructure, but there's a lot of nice trees, and there's some roads that go in there. We go there occasionally from Serbia, and sometimes the police are there quite often. They keep tabs on us, so they know when we're coming. They know when we have a party. They know when we have a conference and bring people there. So they're out in force when we come with our ships. They're not always there, so sometimes people can go to Liberland.
Interesting. So they don't want the land, but they would like to police it.
Exactly. Their blockade is extraterritorial. That means they're operating outside their own jurisdiction, and that's what we're contesting. And our ultimate objective is to have a seat at the table when Serbia and Croatia finally negotiate their border dispute. You see, Serbia wants to get in the EU too, and the EU has said we don't want to import any more border disputes. So, and there's other issues that Serbia has, like infrastructure and levels of corruption and things like that, which are EU standards, and they have to fulfill those EU standards before they're admitted. So it'll be a few years before that happens, and Croatia is sabotaging their accession to the EU anyway. So we think that the EU will probably take Croatia's side in these disputes, which might work out for Liberland's favor since Croatia doesn't want the land. Right. So we've actually formally asked the European Commission a question if Siga or Liberland lies within EU borders. So how they answer, I'm expecting a pretty vague answer from them. How they answer will be very interesting. And if they say, well, no, it's not in the EU, then we can show that to Croatia and say, hey, why are you guys here? You're blocking us. The real reason is it's easier to block the river than it is to block the land. So that's probably why, one of the reasons. And it's so very close to their border. Their intelligence services and their police monitor our activities. They are it's their job to be paranoid, so they are paranoid. Sure. We would like to overcome that. Since Vit is not allowed in Croatia, we haven't been able to talk to him with Vit, talk to them with Vit. Vit is usually our top diplomat, being the president, and he travels around a lot. So he hasn't been able to go into Croatia. I went to Croatia last year. I went to the parliament, and I met 4 or 5 members of parliament. We have a guy there who's very supportive of us, who brought me in there, and I even met the person in government who said, Liberland must be stopped. Wow. And we actually had a nice conversation. And, we need to show them that we're serious, and we need to show them that we can bring investment and tourism and jobs to the region. And pretty soon we're going to have release an announcement, a statement on relations with Croatia, which we've been needing to do for a long time. And part of my role is to, create and work on these statements and announcements that are part of Liberland's communications. I assist the president in some of his communications and some of his travel, especially to the United States and other countries. I believe we'll be going to Acapulco in Mexico next, that great libertarian event in Acapulco, which is a beautiful place. We went there last year, and we'd get to speak there, and it was really tremendous. I think, of course, in April we have our anniversary, which we usually bring a bunch of people there and bring them on our ships to Liberland. And we're planning Liberland on the water. We're going to station both our ships and houseboats within Liberland waters, so we can be within waters, and they can't do anything about that. And we'll be able to broadcast, to physically be in Liberland borders. And I think that will be a very strong contributing factor toward the case that we make that, we will be occupying within Liberland borders, and we fulfill the other criteria that I mentioned about the Montevideo criteria. We can enter relations with other states. We're based on the consent of the people. Of course, people who want to be part of Liberland consent to Liberland's existence. So also, there's other considerations that, factor into those, when other states look at, well, gee, should we recognize these guys or not? The more we add to the fulfillment of those criteria, the better chance we'll have. But I think, of course, the number one challenge is to convince our neighbors that we represent a win, a benefit for the region, and we don't want to be antagonistic to anybody. Of course, like I said, there was run-ins with the police before. That wasn't part of the official Liberland, operation. There's a lot of enthusiastic people who came to check out Liberland when we first started. So some of them did have run-ins with the police, and we're not about that. We want to have a peaceful solution, which has a resolution which doesn't have them spending all that money on policing it. We want to have, okay, we won't go within X number of meters of your border if you just leave us alone.
We can't walking a tightrope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How come they get to be there and we can't be there?
Right. Yeah.
So they get to live in a total freedom where we they don't even let us go there. So
I know that you guys you were in the process of drafting a constitution. Is that completely done? And
no, we're actually talking about that today with the cabinet. We've got a draft constitution on the website. We thought Well, it's pretty simple. It's taken the best ideas from the U.S. Constitution, Estonian Constitution, Swiss Constitution, and just boiled it down into a basic document that will hopefully prevent government from growing. I mean, the U.S. had a pretty good constitution when it started, but it didn't really stop the growth of government in its history, and certainly it had its flaws. But we can learn from that. We can learn from the good aspects as well as the negative aspects, and build something which is a little more robust. Now we're trying to simplify what we have, because any lawmaking, anytime you get lawyers involved in writing something, it can be very overly complicated. So we just want to make it a little simpler. We want to have a decentralized dispute resolution system, justice system, and we want to have a self-governing system where people are responsible for themselves. And the only function of the government is to just provide a framework or sort of a structure where everything takes place. We don't tell people what to do with their lives or their property or what have you.
I
Go
was
ahead.
kind of in dispute with someone about this, whether Liberland is a minarchist or anarchist. And in my view, I see the kind of a blending of both, where you have like
Yeah.
a structure, but in what I feel is that it's a representation of my personal libertarian anarchist philosophy put into governance rather than a state, which is what you're talking about with force.
Well, everything's voluntary. I mean, if you don't want to be part of Liberland, you don't have to.
Right.
We don't have mandatory taxes. We do have fees when we're launching our e-residency app, relaunching our e-residency app, where if you want to register your business, you'll pay a fee, and that goes in to help fund it. It's voluntary. If you don't want to register, you don't have to, and we can't tell you not to. You just won't get in the system, and you can have a business anywhere else. We have both limited government and so-called ANCAP supporting us. We're actually very popular in the ANCAP community. Even though we have what's called a government, we don't plan on bombing anybody.
Right. Yeah.
We don't plan on putting people in jail for any,
victimless
crime.
People's understanding of what we call the government generally, and they mean the state, not governance. Yeah. And governance is people just deciding how their community should work. So that's not anarchist. That's just bottom up governance, which is what you would actually have. So I just wanted to address that.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm glad you did. I mean, we'll get cat calls from all the peanut gallery all the time. One guy said, "Oh, you can be libertarians or anarchists. You go to president." I go, "Well, you don't have to do what he tells you to do. It's not like he's a king or something."
Yeah.
You get people who have nothing better to do than to complain, and the people who are ideological, sometimes they get kind of siloed in their thoughts, and they don't live or function in the real world. And I think that's something that we are doing. You can theorize all day about how you want a perfect society to look. Go and create your own. I mean, if someone has some issue with something that we're doing, they're certainly free to create their own.
That's what subsidiarity is about, a competing government.
And we want to inspire that. Yeah, if we inspire other Liberlands to form, we will have done our job. And there are about 10 or so diaspora communities that are affiliated with Liberland throughout the world. We've got one in Panama. We've got one, of course, in Somaliland. We have very good relations there. We have, we're looking at some other places in Mexico. I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head, but if you have Vit on the show sometime, I'm sure he'll be happy to come on. He can tell you more about that. But we've got communities around the world who are also supportive of Liberland, and we were looking at some property in Central America last year when we went to Mexico that would sort of function as a Liberland outpost. So,
I think that's great. It goes to the point that when you take action and you start to do things and you get momentum, that is inspirational to other people to do those things as well. And so often those kinds of things are the foundation of actually getting movement and momentum to change culture, because you have to get more people on board, and the more people you have involved and going out, as you said, in the diaspora, that's more people that are influenced, that are interacting with other people all around the world.
some other, smaller nation movement. There's another one which some of our supporters also support that wants to purchase land from an existing nation, and it would just be purchased free and clear, and then they would have their own sovereign territory. That's a good idea. And, we're happy that people who support us support that too. I don't know much about it, but I've heard about it. There's, they put some feelers out there. I don't know any more details, but I certainly wish them luck. And we're glad to share our learnings with them, as I hope they will share theirs with ours. There's also the seasteading movement. We've had mutual events with those guys, and they're great. They also have a similar idea of human communities on the water, and that's actually an aspect of Liberland right now when we're planning our communities on the water with our 2 ships and our houseboats.
Sure, that's great. I think it's so great to see the innovation and just the desire of people to live their principles and be a part of something that will actually generate real freedom for people, or bring people to that point in their lives so they can have that sort of freedom. Well, we're coming down.
We're happy to inspire people to that end. Like I said, if we motivate people to start their own free communities, then we're doing our job. So that's a very satisfactory aspect of it.
Great. Well, we're coming close to the end of our time here, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Are there any events that you'll be at that people could maybe attend, or anything coming up with Liberland that you'd like to?
Yes, we've got. Let me just check here real quick. Well, we've got Anarchapulco in Acapulco, Mexico, and that's coming up very soon. Let me pull up the date for that.
February.
That's in February. Yeah, it's usually February 13, 14, 15, around then. I live in Florida, so flights are pretty cheap to Mexico from Florida, so I'll be attending that.
Great.
Let's see what other events we've got. We've got Anarchapulco. We've got, Vid's coming. Actually, right before that, President Yedlichka is coming to Washington, D.C., February 1st. So if you're in the Washington, D.C. or Virginia or Maryland area, we will probably have a meetup for Liberland supporters around the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd at that time. So, yeah, February 12, 13, 14, 16, 15, 16, Mexico. Right after that, I believe Mr. President's going to Istanbul, Turkey, which he's been to many times. He's got great reception. We have a really good organization, Liberland Turkey. They're very dedicated. They have great marketing materials that they've made. They always pull out the red carpet for our team when they go there. Vienna, February 28th, Portugal, April 6th. And, of course, our anniversary is April 13, 14, and 15. If you'd like to attend, and it's always a great time. A lot of people fly to Belgrade, Serbia, and then just drive with a rental car. Or sometimes they'll fly into Croatia and want to see Croatia. It's a beautiful country. Yes. And then drive over the border to Apatin, Serbia, which is not too far from Novi Sad, where our convention was last year. And then we took buses to Apatin and boarded the ships to go celebrate our anniversary. So we'll post information about our anniversary on our Facebook page, on our website, and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So just follow us on there, follow our posts, read the news about us, and look for the dates when we have our anniversary and other events.
Great. And so what is your website? Just Liberland.org or?
Liberland.org, that's right.
Okay, great.
And on Facebook, it's, just look for the main Liberland page on Facebook.
Wonderful. I'm always encouraged by people putting their ideas out there and trying to live those instead of just being mentally assenting to ideals, but actually doing something to affect change. And so I appreciate you guys and what you're doing, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today to talk to us about that.
Well, it's my pleasure. And if you want some other folks from the Liberland team, like Dave Molyneux or Bogey Wozniak, or one of our vice presidents, or some of our other cabinet members or representatives, I'm sure they'll be happy to come on your show, Sherry.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.